Discover the incredible journey of President McKinley, how one vision changed lives forever. In the heart of Canton, Ohio, a young boy named William McKinley played on the bustling streets, dreaming big dreams against the backdrop of horse-drawn carriages clattering past. His family, a beacon of hard work and unity, thrived in an environment stitched together by love and perseverance. Every evening, their kitchen resonated with laughter and storytelling, a cozy sanctuary amid a world rife with economic disparity and social strife. As they gathered around the table, sharing tales of their day, the smell of fresh bread filled the air, mingling with the sounds of heartbeats and hopes. Dreams of a united America danced in their conversations, weaving a tapestry of aspiration that lit William's young heart. From a tender age, he internalized the value of community, understanding deeply that every hand raised in labor was a hand deserving of recognition. As he grew from a bright-eyed boy into a determined young man, he became enchanted with the realm of politics. The town, a microcosm of the nation, reflected a society charged with tension. The working class clamored for acknowledgement, while the affluent elite reveled in their gilded boxes. McKinley envisioned lifting the spirits of those around him. Yet his ambitions began to sow seeds of division amongst those he loved. Friction grew palpable one stormy evening. The rain drummed outside as William's idealism clashed with his father's fears. "Son," his father implored, tears glistening in his eyes. "Politics is a dirty game, could ruin us." His voice cracked, unraveling years of unspoken love and disappointment. In that moment, discontent surged within William. A coil tightened in his chest, tempered with love for a father who fought to shield him from what he believed could cause pain. The weight of ambition pressed down on him as he began to navigate the rocky terrain of politics. His spirit soared when he rose through the ranks, yet the tension rattled him. The labor crisis loomed like a storm cloud. Protests erupted around him. He sat at the kitchen table again, the warmth of home now replaced with cold touches of tension. The air felt thick as he weighed the aspirations of ordinary workers against the interests of established powers. Just when he felt hope slipping away, a chance encounter with a weary laborer turned everything upside down. The man's eyes, filled with struggles and dreams unfulfilled, reignited the fire in McKinley's heart. He could feel the pulse of every worker's dream. Yet, as he envisioned a more equitable society, the distance between his family's values and his ideals stretched dangerously. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The stakes grew higher, as did the pressure on McKinley's soul. Could he bridge the divide, honor his family, and uphold his vision for America? As protests surged around him, with chants of justice echoing through the streets, he inhaled deeply, ready to embrace the challenges ahead. The path to reconciliation stood before him, yet obstacles loomed like shadows in a dim-lit room. Would he be strong enough to meld ambition and affection, or would he falter in this intricate dance between ideals and love? The storm was brewing, and the winds of change were racing toward him. The sun broke through the clouds the next morning, casting warm rays over Canton. McKinley felt a flicker of hope. He stepped outside, the crisp air filling his lungs as he set his sights on the bustling marketplace. He needed to understand the pulse of the people, where their hearts beat, how their dreams soared, and where their burdens lay heavy. As he wandered through the crowd, he watched men and women, their faces lined with exhaustion but also determination. The market was alive with calls for fresh produce and home-cooked goods, laughter intermingling with the haggling over prices. Yet, beneath the cheerful facade, he sensed the undercurrent of discontent. He approached a group gathered near a stall, their brows furrowed as they spoke in hushed tones, sharing their frustrations about wages barely enough to feed their families. "Gentlemen," McKinley said, stepping closer, "what troubles weigh upon your shoulders?" At first, they eyed him warily, He was just a young politician, a figure at the start of his climb. But his earnest eyes and sincere tones slowly melted their defenses. One man spoke up, his voice thick with emotion. "Mr. McKinley, we work day and night, yet our children go to sleep hungry. We need a voice that will not only listen but fight for our cause." McKinley nodded, his heart racing. This was the very reason he had felt the tug toward politics. He wanted to be that voice, to channel their anger and despair into something constructive. They spoke of reforms, fair wages, and safer conditions. Each story struck a chord within him, echoing conversations from the kitchen table with his family. He knew this was the moment that could define him. Days turned into weeks, and as the protests grew louder, so did his resolve. Every night, he returned home to find his father sitting in the same chair, looking more worn and worried with each passing day. "These protests, they're dangerous, William," his father would say, eyes heavy with dread. "You must think of your future." But what about the future of those workers? McKinley's heart pounded in his chest as he weighed his father's concerns against the call for justice he could no longer ignore. It was a battle between safety and purpose. Torn between familial obligation and the cause that ignited his spirit, he felt his world fraying. "I understand your fears, Dad," he said one evening, fists clenched in determination. "But turning a blind eye will not help us or them. I have to do this. We will build a better America." Tension hung in the air, and for a moment, the two men simply stared at each other, wrestling with their opposing views. Finally, his father sighed, weary acceptance washing over his features. "Then you better be strong, William. The path you choose will be fraught with struggle." As McKinley dove headfirst into his mission, he began organizing gatherings, rallying support from the very people he met at the market. He could see the hope in their faces, the flicker of belief that change was possible. Together, they raised their voices, drowning out the doubts that threatened to suffocate their ambitions. Yet, with each passing day, the weight of his father's worries gnawed at him. Each cheering crowd was a reminder of the love waiting at home, edging him toward a crossroads he hadn't anticipated. The movement surged forward, inspiring change but also drawing backlash. Tensions escalated, and whispers of threats filled the air. Would he continue to walk this path for justice, even as it tore at the fabric of his family life? As the waves of unrest swelled around him, McKinley recognized that the true storm was not from without, but from within. And then, just when he thought things couldn't get more complicated, a letter slipped into his hands, an unexpected message that would send ripples through his journey. What could this mean for him and his cherished ideals? Uncertain and filled with resolve, he turned the envelope over, bracing for what was to come next. McKinley stood at the edge of the bustling market, the envelope heavy in his hands as he took a deep breath. The brass of the doorknob in front of him gleamed in the sun, but false brightness didn't hide the uncertainty flickering in his gut. Flipping the letter over, he ran his thumb across the seal, the smooth wax offering a brief moment of comfort before he cracked it open as he unfolded the paper. The words jumped out at him, a single phrase sending chills down his spine. "We know of your efforts." A wave of fear washed over him. Who was watching? What did they know? The letter warned of consequences for his growing activism, taunting with threats that could shake the very foundation of his mission. Yet, beneath the fear, he felt an ironic thrill. This was the moment of truth for him, just like he had longed for. With shaky hands, he read through the message. An ultimatum loomed large. Silence his voice or face the wrath of those who controlled the city's power. He balled the paper into a fist, the heat rising in his chest. Did they truly think they could intimidate him? Not when there were faces he had seen nearly every day, faces of families sharing stories of hope mixed with desperation. Determined, McKinley sought out his comrades, those who had rallied around him, hungry for change. He found them by the old oak tree where they often gathered, listening intently to one another's dreams, each voice a thread stitching them closer together. As he approached, their laughter faded, replaced by a palpable tension. He could see it in their eyes, hope, concern, and a fierce loyalty that sparked within them all. "I need to speak with you," he said. his voice steady despite the chaos swirling in his mind. "What I have to say can put us all at risk." A collective breath was held as he shared the contents of the letter. Gasps punctuated the air as each person processed the weight of his words. "They want us to be quiet," one woman exclaimed, clutching her child tightly. "But we can't back down now. What they're threatening doesn't scare me," a man added, clenching his fists. "We're fighting for something bigger than ourselves." McKinley's heart swelled. Their reaction was not fear, but defiance. "We need to keep pushing forward," he urged. "They want silence, but we can drown them out with our voice." The crowd murmured in agreement, the energy electrifying. Ideas began to spring forth. They would organize a rally, a bold stand where they would lay bare their grievances before the entire community, united and loud. As they planned fervently, McKinley felt a spark of something he hadn't experienced in days. Hope. Maybe together, with all of their voices interwoven, they could not only stand firm against the threats looming over them but change the very course of their future. As darkness approached, McKinley walked home, the letter tightly gripped in his pocket. He was still terrified, yes, but the memory of their unity surged within him. He could not ignore that flaring flame of purpose. When he returned to his house, the warmth of home felt different now, comforting yet filled with tension. His father looked at him with worry etched on his face as McKinley stepped inside. That familiar battle of familial love versus passionate purpose tugged at him with renewed vigor. Was he truly prepared for the cost of this conflict? As he pondered these thoughts, a sudden clamor erupted outside. Voices raised, a call to arms. McKinley's heart raced as he sprinted outside to witness a crowd gathering. There was no mistaking it, this was only the beginning of what was to come. How far would he go for justice? He stood at the threshold, torn between the security of the familiar and the thrilling uncertainty of change. Would he answer the call, rendering his own future a mere shadow of what was to come? Gripping the doorway, he could feel the fork in the road ahead, and the next choice would change everything. The crowd swelled in front of him, a sea of familiar faces illuminated by the fading light of dusk. McKinley's heart thundered in his chest, each beat a reminder of the importance of the moment. He stepped forward, the urge to join them pulling him beyond the threshold of his house. Voices rose like a tide, flowing with anger, hope, and an unwavering spirit. "All we want is to be heard," shouted a voice near the front. It was Rosemary, a firebrand with a fierce passion. "The people deserve to know what's happening. They deserve to know the truth." McKinley felt the power of her words wash over him. It was exactly what he needed to hear. This gathering was not just a response to threats. It was a declaration, a promise to stand together as a community willing to fight for their rights. He pushed through the crowd, their energy wrapping around him like a warm blanket. "Let us march," someone called, igniting a surge of excitement. They all shifted, ready to move as one body, a single heartbeat pounding against the injustices they faced. "I have something to share," McKinley shouted, raising his hands to command their attention. "Please, let us gather. We need to plan and show that we won't be silenced. Not now, not ever." The murmurs quieted as he spoke, their eyes turning toward him with an intensity that both terrified and exhilarated him. Here he was, standing on the precipice, a leader shaped by uncertainty and resolve. "I received a letter today," he continued, his voice strong. "An ultimatum. They want me to be quiet because they fear the power we hold. But we can't let them intimidate us. We have to rally together and make our voices heard." A crescendo of cheers erupted. It surged through the crowd, and McKinley felt that unity again, that fierce warmth rising in his chest, fueling his resolve. "We need to organize a rally. We'll take our message to the streets, to the heart of this city, and tell everyone that we will not be silenced." The spirit of the gathering ignited like a spark catching fire, faces lit with determination. "But we need to be careful," warned David, a pragmatic voice among the group. "They are watching. We need a plan." The crowd shifted, the energy morphing into strategic discussions of timing, location, and safety. Laughter and ideas mixed with fear and fervor, creating a rich tapestry of community and purpose. As night settled in, McKinley realized he was no longer just a boy afraid of repercussions. He was transformed, a voice among voices, a heart among hearts. Under the canopy of stars, they began to devise a plan. Ideas flew: who would speak, what they would say, how they would spread the word. He felt inspired, energized as faces exchanged quick glances of affirmation and hope. Yet, deep inside, doubt still churned. What would happen if they faced violence? What would he say to his father if something went wrong? But the rally must happen. He had to push beyond that fear, and the thought fueled him. Leaving his fears behind, he started to formulate words that could uplift them all. A speech that would resonate as the group finalized plans. A loud clap of thunder rolled overhead, a reminder of nature's unpredictable force. Calm moments slipped into the chaos of distant lightning. McKinley stood, significant choices looming, and in that rhythm of uncertainty, he gripped the hope they all shared. There was no turning back now. He felt the weight of it all gathering momentum. Before he could announce their next steps, an unexpected rustle from the edge of the gathering sent shivers down his spine. Someone had arrived unannounced, their presence sending a ripple of unease through the crowd. Could this be friend or foe? McKinley felt his heart race again, a sudden surge of panic. What if it was someone from the very shadows threatening them? He stepped forward, questioning the figure cloaked against the night, uncertain of who or what lay ahead. Would they bring news of danger or something much more profound? The air crackled with anticipation, and he had to know. The crowd held its collective breath, and in that moment, all eyes turned toward the figure emerging from the shadows. McKinley felt as if time stood still. The tension wrapped around him like a tightly wound coil, each heartbeat echoing louder in his ears. The figure stepped closer, revealing a familiar face beneath the hood: a local journalist, Elena, known for her fierce reporting and unyielding spirit. A mixture of relief and heightened anticipation coursed through McKinley. He had always admired her courage, but why was she here now? "Elena!" he exclaimed, his voice cutting through the heavy silence. "What are you doing here?" With purpose in her stride, she swept her gaze across the crowd, assessing them like a general preparing for battle. "I came to warn you," she said, her voice steady, yet heavy with urgency. "Things are about to get much tougher. I have information that you all need to hear." A murmur spread among the crowd, a ripple of confusion and expectation. McKinley beckoned her to the front, feeling the weight of her arrival. "What's going on?" he pressed, fighting to keep his voice steady. "There is a plan in motion," she replied, glancing around them as if fearing unseen eyes. "They're ready to clamp down on anyone who dares to stand up. I overheard them talking about targeting the rally. You could be in serious danger." Her words hit like a thunderbolt. The very hope that had filled the air moments before was now shadowed by a chilling reality. McKinley's heart sank as he surveyed the faces in front of him. They were eager, ready to fight, but he couldn't let them step into a trap. He couldn't let them get hurt because of his vision. "Listen," he said, drawing closer to the crowd, attempting to keep his composure. "We need to adapt. We can't abandon our fight, but we have to be smart about it." Elena nodded, stepping beside him. "We have to make sure that this message reaches everyone safely before we gather in the streets. We can't let fear dictate our actions, but we have to protect each other." David jumped in. "What if we create smaller groups? Disperse across different paths on the day of the rally. That way they won't know where the bulk of us is gathering." "Exactly," Elena agreed, her eyes brightening. "Spread the word through trusted channels. Texts, social media, whatever it takes. They might be watching, but we're not without our means." McKinley felt a weight lift from his chest, hope swirling in the air again. "It won't be easy, but we can do this. Together." The crowd began to buzz with fresh determination. They shared glances filled with a mix of fear and excitement, ready to stand strong against the unknown. As they broke into smaller discussions and plans, McKinley took a moment to step back, watching them rally around this renewed purpose. Yet deep inside, doubt lingered, a whisper in the back of his mind. Would they really be safe? And what about his father? Where did his duty lie amidst this growing storm? In the midst of their fervor, a thought struck him. What if they could use the uncertainty against their foes? Draw them out? The possibilities unfolded like a map in his mind. Suddenly, the crackle of a nearby radio shattered the night's air, making heads turn. A voice crackled through the static, reporting disturbances in the neighborhood. It was clear their enemies were already on alert. McKinley's heart raced again. They were being tracked, and this could go from planning to peril in an instant. Then he noticed Elena's expression. As she scanned the horizon, her instinct on high alert. "We need to move. Fast," she said urgently. "Now is the time to act before they can rally against us." Spotting the uncertainty in the eyes of his friends, McKinley felt the weight of the moment. Could he truly lead them into battle, not knowing the cost? "Let us show them who we are," he shouted, fighting for a smile as adrenaline surged through him. "They can't silence us. We'll make our stand, and we'll do it on our terms." But as they prepared to disperse into the night, McKinley couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. What would they do when the shadows turned into a storm? Would they be ready for what lay ahead? With the crack of thunder echoing above, the stakes had never felt higher, and neither had his resolve. But as he took his first steps towards the unknown, McKinley wondered, with danger closing in, would they find the strength to overcome? They moved quickly, urgency pushing them forward like a rushing river, their breaths mingling with the cool night air. McKinley cast a glance at Elena, her determination palpable, sparking reassurance within him. But shadows danced around them, and every whispered rustle seemed to hint at lurking threats. As small groups began to break away, he felt a pang of separation, a mixture of pride and concern. He had gathered them, ignited a fire within their hearts, but now they faced the true challenge, staying safe while the world around them threatened to collapse. "Stay close," McKinley called out, his voice firm. "We need to keep moving." They slipped through back alleys, avoiding the main roads. The thrill of their purpose pushed aside any fear, but the anxiety gnawed at him. What if someone was caught? What if his father, his true loyalty and moral compass, found himself in harm's way for what McKinley was inciting? He couldn't let that happen. Suddenly, a piercing siren broke the midnight silence. Hearts raced, and adrenaline surged through the group as instincts screamed for them to hide. "Quick!" he urged, dashing toward a narrow side street, his eyes darting toward their surroundings. They crammed into a dark doorway, and breathlessness filled the air. But it wasn't just fatigue, it was fear, the kind that clenched at their throats. McKinley's chest heaved, awareness sharpened, and he felt the weight of every soul pressed against him. They were in this together, and he knew he had to remain their beacon of courage. "Keep quiet," he whispered, studying their faces lit only by the faint glow of a street lamp. Hope and anxiety intermingled, creating a tension that was almost tangible. When the siren faded, they released a sigh of relief, but the release quickly turned back to tension as new voices echoed from the darkness behind them. "Keep moving. We can't afford any stragglers," a firm voice ordered. McKinley caught a glimpse of uniformed officers in the distance, their flashlights cutting through the night, seeking anything out of the ordinary. "Go," he urged in a low hiss. "They have to split up now." On a nod from Elena, they broke away, scattering like autumn leaves carried by the wind. McKinley felt a tug of fear as he watched them disperse, splitting into the night, only their shared mission to unite them. Each step echoed back the doubts in his mind. He made his way through the shadows, keeping his focus sharp. There was a sense of purpose now. This was more than just a rally, it was about future generations, about the stories they tell, and the change they could spark. As he turned a corner, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, but before he could even glance, a sudden jolt of panic shook him. He recognized the name on the screen. It was his father. "Dad?" he answered, trying to keep a steady voice amidst his racing heartbeat. "McKinley, where are you? It's not safe. You need to come home." His father's voice crackled, filled with worry and urgency. "I'm okay, Dad, but we're under threat right now. I can't." A chilling silence blanketed the moment before his father spoke again. his voice low and urgent. "They're searching for you. I can help. Meet me at the old warehouse just off 6th Street. Dad, it's dangerous. Please, I need you to trust me," his father insisted, a tone using authority that sent chills down McKinley's spine as he hesitated. Doubt and loyalty battled within him. Should he meet his father or continue leading this group toward change? The sound of approaching footsteps broke his concentration. He glanced over his shoulder and saw shadows moving closer. Officers fanned out. He gripped the phone tighter, adrenaline coursing through him, every fiber of his being screaming to run. What will he choose? Will McKinley trust his father in a moment of peril, or will he uphold the cause he has started? With the shadows drawing nearer, the weight of destiny loomed larger than ever. The shadows swirled around McKinley, darkness pressing in as he faced the hard choice before him. He knew the urgency in his father's voice wasn't just about him. It was about everything they had worked for, everything that was at stake. Panic simmered within him, threading a tight coil around his chest. Should he abandon the movement, the very heartbeat of hope for so many, to heed a call to safety? "McKinley, stay focused," he muttered to himself, the weight of leadership pressing against him like a physical force. He could feel the air thicken, a cold sweat trickling down his spine. But the firm voice of his father echoed in his mind, steady, sure. "I can't lead them if I'm not here," he whispered to himself. But before he could fully process his choice, the first cop's flashlight swung directly into view, illuminating the doorway where he stood concealed. Heart in his throat, he took a step back, slipping instinctively into the shadows. The officers moved with precision, the crack of their boots on the pavement cutting through the stillness. "We need to sweep the area. They have to be around here somewhere," one officer barked. McKinley's stomach nodded. He had to act. Distracted by the looming figures, he clenched his phone tighter, determined. He couldn't meet his father now. He owed it to his friends, to everyone who believed in a better world. But as reality sank in, the sound of approaching footsteps heightened his anxiety. "Please let them be okay," he thought, biting his lip, feeling the familiar twinge of dread. What about Elena? What if she got caught? He had seen her fight for this change, her spirit unbreakable, and he didn't want to let fear snuff that flame out. His heart pounded louder than his thoughts, and he pushed off the wall, deciding to move deeper into the alley. But just then, a voice rang out close by, slicing sharply through the night. "We see you there. Come out with your hands up." Adrenaline coursed through him, quickening his steps as he bolted down the alleyway. Each heartbeat echoed in his ears, urgency pulling him toward the darkness ahead. He caught a blurred glimpse of the officers' flashlights bobbing behind him, searching, hunting. Keep it together," he chanted, his breath coming in hard bursts. He could almost taste fear at the back of his throat. Where could he go? Somewhere strategically smart, somewhere they wouldn't think to look. Finally, he spotted an old crawl space by an abandoned building, its entrance barely visible. Without thinking, he dove inside. The darkness pressed around him, wrapping him like a shroud, but he pressed himself against the cold wall, forcing himself to breathe quietly. As the voices faded momentarily, he pulled out his phone. The screen lit up the cramped space, and he saw the message notification from his father again. Felt heavy in his hand. Could he really turn his back on that plea for safety? Tears of frustration stung his eyes, and he felt helpless. He couldn't protect everyone, but could he risk everything just to save himself? A buzzing sound interrupted his thoughts. An incoming call from Elena. "McKinley," she breathed, her voice slight and trembling, echoing the fear he felt. "I saw the police. I'm hiding, but I can't stay here long. What should we do?" His heart slammed in his chest. Should he tell her to meet his father? Or should he reassure her, dive deeper into their cause? But a distant sound grew louder. The sirens were back, closing in. "Get somewhere safe," he whispered, torn but resolute. "I need you to trust me. This isn't over." As he hung up, McKinley felt the weight of the moment. Would he be able to bring them all together again? Would he find a way to meet his father without losing everything he worked so hard to build? The night felt endless, and determination began to bloom within. But time was running out, and outside, the echo of their choice lingered. Would he align with those seeking safety, or take on the mountain of change still before him? The shadows loomed large, testing every fiber of his being. The distance between choices seemed insurmountable, but he was ready to face whatever came next. What's the next move? With that thought, the darkness held its breath. McKinley listened intently, the silence of his crawl space closing in around him like a suffocating blanket. Just beyond the entrance, he could hear the shuffle of officer boots, the crackle of their radios slicing through the night. He squeezed his phone tight, the screen illuminating the small space, casting fleeting shadows that danced against the damp walls. The reality of the moment sat heavy on his shoulders. What if they found him? What if Elena was caught? He replayed their conversation in his mind, each word an echo of their shared resolve. But now it felt different, more urgent. I need to make this work, he told himself, his breath hitching as he fought back the rising tide of panic. The flickering light pulled his eyes to the exit again, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he had to move. He poked his head out cautiously, scanning the alley. No one was in sight. The shadows still loomed, but they weren't just other figures anymore. They were the embodiment of his fear of failure, fear of losing everything. Moving softly, he slid out of the crawl space, embracing the darkness. With quiet determination, he started moving deeper into the alley, darting between the scattered trash cans lining the narrow path. Each step felt heavier than the last, the stakes mounting with every heartbeat. Whereas Elena, he wondered, grappling with the thought of her out there, alone. Her courage had always inspired him, but that same fear clawed at his gut. He had seen her stand up in rallies, fearless against the tide of opposition. But this wasn't just a protest anymore. This was real. Then suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, he saw her standing there, flushed and breathless. Relief washed over him, but it was quickly swallowed by fear. "Elena!" he whispered sharply, catching her eye and motioning for her to join him. She stumbled toward him, her eyes wide. "I thought I lost you," she gasped, looking over her shoulder. "The sirens are getting louder. We have to go." He nodded, heart pounding in rhythm with her worry. "I know, but where could they go?" In that moment, the walls around them felt like they were closing in. Would running into the night be their salvation or their end? "The old warehouse," he suggested, recalling the abandoned spot they'd used as a meeting place before. "It's far enough away. Do you think we'll be safe there?" she asked, doubt flashing across her face. "Better than here," he replied, pulling her closer. Just then, a distant commotion erupted. Shouts and the wail of sirens resounded through the alley, and McKinley felt the adrenaline pump anew. "We can't wait. Let us go." They sprinted down the alley, side by side. The world narrowed to the rhythm of their pounding hearts and the backdrop of chaos fading behind them, urgency amplifying every step. They slipped between old buildings and around corners, and for a moment, the rush of motion quelled his fear as they reached the warehouse. McKinley paused, scanning for any sign of danger. "Stay close," he urged as they ducked inside. The vast emptiness engulfed them, a sanctuary for two souls caught in the storm of change. Once inside, they stopped to catch their breath, leaning against a wall that felt cool against their backs. But hope quickly turned to uncertainty. "What now?" Elena asked, clasping her hands together as if seeking warmth. McKinley looked into her eyes, searching for a glimmer of the resilience he admired. "We figure out our next steps. We keep fighting together." His voice was steadier than he felt. But even as those words hung between them, the shadows around them whispered of doubt, nudging at the edges of their resolve. "Do they know we're here?" Elena asked, biting her lip. "I don't know," he admitted, feeling the weight of all they had faced. "But we can't back down now." Just then, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed outside. They both froze, the reality of their situation crashing down again. "McKinley, what if they find us? What if they don't?" He shot back, forcing the fear aside. But would their choices lead to safety or deeper into trouble? The air felt electric with possibility, but it was laced with danger. What awaited them when they stepped outside? As that question loomed, McKinley felt the tide shift again. Would they emerge into the light of hope, or would darkness consume everything they fought for? Together, he mumbled under his breath, bracing for the unknown. In that moment, he realized that courage was not the absence of fear but the determination to move forward despite it. What lay ahead awaited them in the shadows. Would they find their way, or be swallowed by the night? The footsteps grew closer, their steady rhythm a reminder of the danger that loomed outside. McKinley felt his chest tighten as he turned to Elena, her wide eyes reflecting the same fear he felt. "Stay quiet," he whispered, already knowing they had to think fast. Every shadow and creak of the old warehouse seemed magnified in that moment, as if the world itself was holding its breath. He scanned the room, searching for any potential escape route, any hiding spot. The warehouse was dilapidated, filled with clouds of dust and long-forgotten treasures buried beneath years of neglect. Old crates and stacks of worn-out machinery stood like silent guardians, their presence both comforting and unsettling. Over there, he pointed towards a stack of crates against the far wall. "If we're quiet, we can hide behind those." Elena nodded, her determination flickering in her eyes as they moved slowly, each careful step an exercise in stealth. They crouched down, hearts pounding as the sounds from outside coiled tighter around them. The voices of officers grew louder, their words indistinct but urgent. A wave of dread washed over McKinley. How long could they stay hidden? He couldn't bear to think about what would happen if they were caught now. "Do you remember the summer at the lake?" Elena suddenly broke the silence, her voice a mere whisper. "We talked about our dreams, how we wanted to change the world and make a difference." In the midst of everything, her words grounded McKinley. He could see them there, sun glistening on the water, laughter escaping their lips like bubbles into the air. That dream seemed innocent then, a spark of hope in a world that felt heavy. Now it was everything. "Yes," he answered, his voice filled with conviction. "That's what we're doing now. No matter how dark it gets, we can't give up on our vision." A loud crash interrupted them, echoing through the warehouse like a gunshot. McKinley squeezed Elena's hand, feeling the jolt of alarm travel through their connected fingers. The footsteps halting outside sent a shiver down his spine. "Now what?" Elena whispered, panic creeping into her voice. "We wait and listen," he replied, fighting to keep his own fear at bay. They had to stay focused. Each moment spun in chaotic tension, time stretching and contracting, holding their breath for the next sound. Moments later, they heard the officers shouting commands, searching through the area. "Check the shed. I want every inch of this place searched." One officer barked, sending a wave of dread through McKinley's heart. They would find them, he thought. It was only a matter of time. But then, a flicker of defiance ignited in his gut. He had come too far to give in. He looked at Elena, her face set in determination, and he knew they couldn't be defeated so easily. "Maybe we should get out," he said, his mind racing. "If we can slip out through the back, we might make it to the street." Elena nodded tightly, and he squeezed her hand again. The fire in her eyes matched his own. They couldn't let fear dictate their fate. On the count of 3, 1, 2. Before he could say 3, the warehouse door burst open. For officers flooded in, guns drawn, eyes scanning the space. "Hands up! We know you're in here," they shouted. Frozen in place, McKinley felt the electric shock of adrenaline surge through him. The warmth that once radiated from their moment of hope was now a distant memory. "Run!" he shouted, leaping into action, dragging Elena behind him. They darted toward the shadow of the crates, but it was too late. Gunshots rang out, echoes bouncing off the walls like a thunderclap. McKinley's heart raced as they dashed for the nearest exit, knowing every step was a chance, a gamble between freedom and capture. As they approached the door, he cast one last glance back into the warehouse. The world had shifted, the fight for their freedom just beginning. What lay beyond that threshold? Would they escape, or would the darkness consume them both? "Go, go, go!" he yelled, urgency fueling his legs as they burst out into the night, fear and hope, intertwining as they faced the uncertain road ahead. The early morning light poured through the trees, dappling the ground with warmth. McKinley and Elena stumbled out of the shadows, hearts pounding, adrenaline still surging through their veins. They stood breathless for a moment, taking in the world around them, the fresh scent of dew-kissed grass, the chirping of birds greeting the dawn. It felt almost like a dream, but reality crashed back in, sharp and demanding. The sirens had faded into the distance, but the threat hadn't fully disappeared. McKinley's mind raced with thoughts of the rally, the faces of his people, their hopes and fears intertwined like a beautiful thread of humanity. How could he let them down now after everything they had endured? Elena turned toward him, her eyes shining with a fierce determination that reminded him of their dreams by the lake. "What's next?" she asked softly, concern threading her voice. "We need to regroup," McKinley replied, his resolve strengthening. "We can't let their fear keep us silent. If we want to be heard, we have to show them that we're united, that they can't break us." Together, they set off, weaving through back alleys, avoiding main roads, fueled by a sense of purpose stronger than the trepidation coiling in their stomachs. As they approached their meeting place, whispers of their friends seeking refuge grew louder in his mind. Would they be okay? Would they stand as one against the pummeling tide of opposition? When they reached the old oak tree, a sense of relief washed over them. McKinley stood still, heart full, as he saw familiar faces emerge from the shadows. Individuals they'd fought alongside, their spirits unyielding despite the night's chaos. "Is everyone all right?" he called, voice steady but filled with urgency. A chorus of affirmatives met him, faces illuminated by fading light, filled with defiance and unity. With an unspoken bond, they formed a circle around McKinley. Their expressions reflected love and determination. "Together, we'll keep moving forward," he declared, feeling the surge of hope swell within him. "Last night was a testament to what we stand for. Let us plan a way to share our message, make a visible stand. Show the city that we refuse to be silenced." The group buzzed with energy, exchanging ideas, thoughts bouncing from one to the next. It was electric. Felt right. "Let us use our phones, our voices," Elena suggested, excitement lacing her words. "We can spread the word on social media. Everyone needs to know we're standing together." With votes of agreement around the circle, they broke off into smaller teams, strategizing and planning together. Each group member held importance, each voice given weight, a thread woven into the fabric of their movement. As McKinley stood back to observe their dynamic, something within him solidified. He felt his father's worries, but also felt the immense power of those who had rallied around him, the power of hope. A vision materialized in his mind, a gathering like never before, one that would shake the foundations. Suddenly, his father's voice echoed through him, urging caution, yet he knew what was at stake. The world outside was evolving, the rumbling of injustice demanding justice and transformation. With tremors of uncertainty washing over him, McKinley stepped forward. "We'll call for a rally at the park," he announced, his voice steady. "We need banners, speeches, stories to share, not just our own, but of every working-class family fighting for a voice. It's time to show them our numbers. We'll drown them out with hope." Cheers erupted, energy swelling around him like a tidal wave. McKinley's heart raced. This was his moment. Fear didn't vanish, but it became fuel. As the day unfolded, the group worked tirelessly, organizing every detail. Banners were drawn, children ran with colored chalk, and stories were shared over shared laughter and tears. The atmosphere pulsed with positive energy, the shared commitment unbreakable. As the sun dipped, painting the sky in twilight hues, they gathered in the park like a thunderous army. Families intertwined with each other, community volunteers joined in, and voices rose, creating a song of resilience. When McKinley stepped up to the microphone, the swell of voices quieted. He took a breath, heart racing. "Tonight," he began, "we stand not as individuals, but as a community united. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every child, every worker, every dreamer who feels unheard. The energy around him electrified. The crowd erupted with applause, clapping and shouting in unity. Each cheer felt like affirmations, stitching them all tighter together, resilience growing stronger as he spoke of justice, of honor, of hope, and together, they began to chant, "We will be heard." And there it was, a culmination of all McKinley had fought for, a transformation not just within himself, but a rekindling of courage that rippled out to everyone present. The past night's fear transformed into a promise to remain steadfast in the journey towards a better future. In that overwhelming moment, he felt his father's presence beside him, years of worry and love converging into something greater. McKinley smiled, heart warmed with newfound strength, reflecting on how far they had come, and the road still ahead. It was all worth it. They were no longer drifting shadows in the night. They were a dawn breaking forth, a vibrant community ready to change the world. Now was the time for action, and in that vibrant park, every voice came together, reaching for a future where unity reigned, every heart beating as one. Stronger than any opposition they might face, it was indeed the moment to transform lives forever. Before we wrap up, I need you to be part of this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure we keep sharing these powerful narratives. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. And don't wait not even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. I know we can do this together. Your support means everything,